They said you were the best in the parsec.
Welcome to
Parsec Passion,
a podcast about Disney Plus Star Wars TV shows. My name's Bubba, and with me, as always, is somebody who loves the turtles. It's Double M Matt Murdock. Double M, we're talking about Part 6, Far, Far Away. The search for Grand Admiral Thrawn reaches beyond the limits of the galaxy. Double M, how are you doing?
Well, I am about as good as could be expected for someone who seems like they've got a torn oblique. But I'm okay. No. I'm here. I'm ready to talk about this episode, which I thought was good, really good. Not great.
Oh, but, no.
Yeah, we could talk about it when we get into our ratings, Bubba.
Okay, well, good, not great. That is fascinating because you've been very high on all these episodes. If you're brand new to us here at the Parsec Passion podcast, Double M has watched the animated shows, Star Wars Rebels. He knows these characters. He's been over the moon for the first 5 episodes. And now we got to get to it. Matt, what is your rating for Part 6, Far, Far Away?
Now, as you all know, I can't rate anything too low. It's just the way that I am. So when I give something an 8.9 out of 10, you know that it's not quite to the snub because I'm almost always at 9 or higher, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So I gave this 8.9, and I really debated what to do with this rating. I thought maybe it should be quadruple S's.
Wait, quadruple S's?
Should have stayed on Cetos, Sabine.
Yes. Hold on. That's perfect. That's perfect. Did you come up with it?
I came up with what I think is a better one because this is the perfect time of year to set this up. And I got to commend Disney for doing this. I gave it 8.9 out of 10, what I call double C's.
Wait, double C's?
Christmas cash-ins. How can you not love the Howlers and the Naughties? Kids everywhere are going to want those as plush toys this Christmas. Perfect timing by Disney. You did it again. Not only are you raising my rates, but you're also cashing in on the Christmas stuff. And I love it. I think that these were adorable scenes. So I did really like that. And I thought, the introduction of Thrawn and seeing Ezra was fantastic also. But I think probably what got me was I killed my own expectation, or I killed my own rating with my high expectations. Oh. I was so taken over by all of the things in the first 2 episodes, how Star Warsy it felt, how I loved the way that the characters really brought their animated counterparts to life. And I guess I expected that in Ezra and Thrawn, and they were great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing it in any way. It's my own fault. My expectations were so high that I ended up disappointing myself. And that's where the majority of it came off. Plus, just the fact that we have this introduction of Captain Enoch. You know who's behind that mask, Bubba? That's Wes Chatham from the Expanse series. That guy, Amos. Yes.
Wow.
That's who that is.
I didn't know that.
You can tell from the build that's him.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know, what is Disney's problem with people who are big stars in other franchises? Because they cover Gwendolyn Christie's face, they cover his face, they throw people like Kit Harington and Emilia Clarke into terrible Marvel movies or Marvel series, whatever that thing was that happened this summer, plus the Eternals. And
yes,
I just wonder, are they scared that people are going to start going back to HBO Max and watch Game of Thrones again just because Gwendolyn Christie's is a stormtrooper? Or this guy, are they going to watch The Expanse? I'm rewatching The Expanse. I don't think you can rewatch The Expanse enough times in your lifetime. I love that show, but it drives me crazy. I hope we get to see Wes take off the mask.
Yes.
Because it's obviously not some kind of thing that physically restricting or something. He's just got this really cool mask, which is nice. But I want to see that really cool face that's underneath there, too. That's my rambling and ranting over nothing. So, Bubba, why don't you tell me what you rated this episode?
Color me a fool for not watching the credits. Wes Chapman is this Captain Enoch. Oh, my goodness gracious. That's incredible. It's actually going to not affect my rating at all, though. I'm going to give this, and you know what? Let me do a preamble. You're talking about expectations. I mentioned how for episode 5, I watched it at the end of a long night. I'd been editing. I'd been working. I was dead tired. And there were parts of episode 5 that really annoyed me, but the beautifulness of the Purgle and the clouds and some of the other scenes, like going back and seeing the Clone Wars again, I was stunned. The episode's beauty and incredibleness overwhelmed any problems I had with it. This episode, I was very tired. I was even more tired this week watching this episode because I do so much work on Tuesdays when it's released. But the episode couldn't overcome my tiredness. So I'm only going to give this 7 quadruple S's out of 10.
Quadruple S's?
Well, Matt, you know what that is. You created it. It should have stayed on Sito Sabine.
You stole my thunder.
I'm sorry. It was wonderful thunder,
rattled.
so I wanted to steal it.
Yeah, okay.
We're finally finding out stuff about the characters I love. Here we have Baylan Skoll. We're finding out he wants to, for lack of a better word, break the wheel. Baylan asks Daenerys how that went for her. We introduce Thrawn, and he gets introduced via a wrestler's introduction. Let's get ready for Thrawn coming through the masses to, reveal himself to the villains and our one hero, Sabine, and to us, the audience. Incredible introduction. And then I'm like, dude, you've been stuck on this planet for 9 years, yet you're not ready to leave. You still need to pack? Weak sauce. I've seen so many animated show watchers who loved this episode. So I feel bad that as a non-animated show watcher, I couldn't get into it as other people did. I'm very happy that the Star Wars team said, hey, people love Rebels. People want to know what happened to these characters, and they're giving them a new show. But as someone who didn't watch that show, and I see Sabine, who I think is one of the better characters on this show, Ahsoka, and she has betrayed her friend Ahsoka. She's betrayed the galaxy to go help the villains get to Thrawn. I'm expecting her reunion with this character, Ezra, to be gigantic emotionally. I want like James Cameron, simple emotions, big. Hey, I betrayed everything to find you, Ezra, and I have found you. And yet instead, it's played very much like, hey, where you been? She didn't have the big, huge emotions that I think somebody would who made a very emotional decision. And yet when they finally find the person they've been looking for, as somebody who didn't watch the animated show, for me, it wasn't emotional enough. So I feel bad that so many Rebels fans are through the moon for this episode. I'm glad that they love it. I'm glad that it exists. I'm glad that so many of our listeners, and we've had great feedback from the listeners about how they loved this episode, how they loved episode 5. But for me, it didn't quite connect. So we're going to talk it through and we're going to see where we get to.
You probably care what you think, and I actually care what you think, but
Aww.
I'm pretty certain that nobody cares what I think or what we think in general.
Exactly.
But we do care what people think, and we would love for them to contact us via our social medias. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at double PHQ. The word double, the letters PHQ. And you can also contact us via email. Email is hello at the word double, the letter P, the word media.com. Use that same spelling for our videos and leave comments on our videos. Talk about how silly Matt looks. Talk about how he looks in pain. Talk about it's obvious how he's never listening to Bubba when Bubba's actually talking.
Smart.
Do all of those things simply by finding the Double P Media YouTube channel, youtube.com/@ the word double, the letter P, the word media.
Matt, before we dive in and get to your feedback, listeners, or tackle this really long, really a lot of things happened episode, I think we do need to talk about news. And a lot of times we like to talk about news with, hey, this is happening, that is happening. Everybody in the future, currently we're in the middle of an actors and writers strike. The guilds here in America, North America, they're on strike. Doesn't seem like we've had too much movement on this specific week. Maybe the writers might get back to the negotiating table. We don't really hear much news of what's going to happen in the Star Wars world beyond Ahsoka because of these strikes. But we do find out that if you're enjoying these shows on Disney Plus, we've got a bit of bad news for you, huh? What's in the news this week, Matt?
Well, I must admit, and I don't know if this is across the board, this is just my own personal reporting on what I found my account, which includes a legacy bundle account, is what it was called. I signed up for it. It includes ESPN Plus as well as Hulu, including Disney Plus. And I signed up for an original price. Well, I think the first couple of months it was $5.99, but then it was going to go to $14.99 a month. And they made it sound like that was going to be your price forever after this. However, that's not the case.
Oh, no.
Just the other day, I received a notice on the app, on the platform, before I started watching last week's Ahsoka to get myself ready for this week's Ahsoka, that my price would raise from $14.99 a month to $18.99 a month. So that's like a 27% increase. They give you options. You can like drop one of the services and just get two for $9.99 and that kind of thing. They're just kind of repackaging everything. But to keep the services that you currently got, what I'm looking at is a 27% increase. I don't know if that has come across to you in the same way, or if it's just after a certain number of months of having the service, they're going to do this. Did you get any kind of price increase notice, Bubba, for your service?
Well, just to go through my history, I think I did the exact same thing you did with Disney Plus. When they announced it, I locked in 2 years at like $5.99 a month, maybe even $4.99 a month. Like, it was a ridiculously great deal. Then after those 2 years were up, I lost track because it did become too big, and I didn't want to depress myself, so I didn't look at it too much. But I don't have a bundle with Hulu or ESPN Plus, so I wonder, listeners, doesn't this mean that they're going to have to give us and announce some great Star Wars content to keep us subscribed? We know that they finished shooting Skeleton Crew, which would have been out in 2023. That's going to go to 2024. We believe there are a lot of indications that they did finish The Acolyte, a show that they were filming, and it'll be out in 2024 as well. But the rumors were that they didn't quite finish Andor Season 2. So to me, people at the end of the year always look at these bundles. I think that if these strikes can end, Disney's going to make a lot of deals and get some of this Star Wars content moving, because if they raise prices, they've got to prove to all the viewers that, hey, this is worth the price. Listeners, we don't go too deep into your wallet. We don't really want to know too much about your finances other than your ATM PIN code. But please, hey, write to us at PHQ on Twitter and Instagram and tell us how you're doing with Disney Plus, which services you have. It'll help us know which shows to cover here on PHQ Podcast. Now, Matt, let's dive into Far, Far Away. I knew that this episode might be trouble for me, because last week, once again, I thought they were on the shots way too long. But the visual of the Purrgil flying through the clouds, I thought it was practically incredible. I thought, okay, they are staying on these shots way too long, but I don't care. It's beautiful. Let's keep looking at it. The show opens. It feels like Purrgil sounds are part of the soundtrack, but the visual of Purrgils flying through hyperspace, to me, it just didn't look quite as cool. What did you think about maybe the Purrgil sounds being included in the opening music, or included in the opening music some way? And then the visuals of giant whales flying through a laser show.
Yeah, they were definitely there. So the sounds. So that's, I don't have an issue with that. Anytime you can make the logo more interesting, as we're having to look at a bunch of droids. I know people like it, but I'm just kind of tired of seeing it. At any rate, the Lucasfilm logo gets a few sounds. That's great. And then everything comes in. I agree with you. I think that the way the light reflecting on those surfaces of the whales is what really made it seem a little bit odd. But then again, I've never seen a Purrgil. I've never been in hyperspace. So maybe Purrgil would naturally look a little weird, but it still wasn't as impressive as seeing them against the bluish and the clouds, for sure.
Yeah, let me put it this way. On their Instagram, the Purrgils have a bunch of photos of themselves flying in the clouds. They took some pictures and for TikTok and for Instagram of flying through hyperspace, and the other Purrgils were like, no, delete. Now, I'm obviously being silly right there. I'm going to be silly again. We have characters flying through hyperspace to another galaxy. This is very far, far away. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm thinking, boy, poor Huyang and Ahsoka. They need like Netflix. They need a Disney Plus bundle account because there's nothing to do. We're just flying through. There's nothing going on. Well, what do you think?
They can talk about the history of the galaxies,
sure.
Part 1, 2, and 3. I love that. That's kind of like the little fan debate about, are the prequels better? Are the sequels better? Are the original trilogy better? Or maybe one of the movies in each of those segments. I thought that was a nice little nod to the fandom they had to really go over the top with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Oh, man.
I thought it was going to be a long time ago in our galaxy. But
that would have been good.
I don't know why Huyang would consider his own galaxy a galaxy far, far away. Or maybe he's talking about this place. It could be that. So, but it was cute. I'm glad it was over because we hadn't seen any of our villains in the last episode, and I wanted to see where they were at. And I desperately did want to meet Thrawn, which, like I said, was exciting.
Oh, yeah.
I just had psyched myself out for it too much, I think.
One brief moment before we cut to the villains, which is where the rest of the episode spends most of its time. And I'll just say that we did have this moment where Ahsoka almost has to kind of grudgingly tell Huyang that Sabine went with the enemy willingly. And Huyang is a droid, am I correct? Thousands of years old? Even he's shocked. He's like, wait, what?
Right.
Incredible. And they have a bit of back and forth. And Huyang says this line, I wrote it out. He says, the Force provides you, Ahsoka, with insight, but it does not give you all the answers.
Yeah.
And because Sabine is having to remember, hey, my good friend, my Padawan, my trainee went with the enemy willingly. Sadly, that smiling Ahsoka that I enjoyed so much at the end of the last episode didn't return for this one. Now, she wasn't exactly stoic, which I was happy about, but her kind of happy, resigned look last week about, let's hope these Purgle work. Yeah. That Ahsoka wasn't around because I've also got to say, my Padawan didn't turn to the dark side, but decided to not fight the dark side. Wow.
Yeah, that's true. You know, one other thing about Ahsoka that we failed to mention last week, or I failed to mention because I don't know how you'd know unless you'd seen the Rebels epilogue. Ahsoka being dressed in white. For a long time, the fandom has called her Ahsoka the White because of that. Now all she seems to be missing is the staff that she was holding in the epilogue, which maybe she'll pick up on Peridia. I don't know.
Right. It'll be made out of Purgle bones that are floating in the atmosphere.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy, that was gross. That was awful. A graveyard, as Thrawn called it. But I just wanted to point that out. And also, I like the determination that Huyang comes to. It's like maybe it was the only choice that she could make. And I tried to make a case for that a couple of episodes ago when we discussed her making that choice, Bubba. But I think that Ahsoka's probably going to need a little more splaining before she's gonna totally settle out on Sabine being okay doing that.
Yeah, will Ahsoka be fine with Sabine saying, "We made a deal," which is where we find her at the beginning of this episode. We had last seen her standing on the deck of this ship, flying to another galaxy, not in cuffs. You know, she seemed not happy, but it was like, okay, we made this deal. You can be here. This episode, this is deal or no deal. It's, I guess, still kind of a deal. But for the trip, you're in a cell with cuffs on. She tries to say that, hey, we made a deal. And Baylan just smirks. He's like, well, yeah, okay, what you going to do? And then we get to the part that, I guess I'm snarky all the time. But I just mentioned that, hey, don't Huyang and Ahsoka need to Netflix and chill or watch something? In the prequels and in these Dave Filoni shows, a lot of people spend a lot of time just staring out into space. I'm trying to remember if that happened a lot in the original trilogy. Now, certainly at the end of Empire Strikes Back, there's a famous shot of the heroes looking out the window, but you could also believe they're kind of watching the Millennium Falcon go fly to try to get back on. The Emperor stares out the window a lot in Return of the Jedi, but you could argue, okay, he's got a plan to lure the rebels there and destroy them. In these shows, a lot of people, it's like, okay, we don't know how long we're going to be flying through hyperspace. Let's just stand here and look this way. Like stand here, look at the stars fly by. Then suddenly they land on Peridia, and it's like, hey, let's just stand here and look at the landscape. And then it's, hey, let's just stand here and watch people load these things. I'm like, Lucas was faster and more intense, but in the prequels and in this show, and maybe in the sequels, though I don't remember so much in the sequels, a lot of people just like, hey, I'm going to stand here and stare at these stars.
What happened to the good old days when Han Solo would let you go back into the cargo hold,
right?
And play with hollow figures,
hollow chess, of course. Yeah. Let's have some fun. But these villains, no, we're going to stand here. They're just staring. Okay, maybe they knew that they were close to exiting hyperspace and they were going to be close to Peridia, To me, I couldn't tell. Now, that said, here's another thing. I didn't mention it in my overall score, but we are flying to a new galaxy. And to me, when you set up, hey, we're going to a new galaxy, you're setting up, I'm going to see stuff I've never seen before. Seeing a planet circled by bones, I'm like, oh, wow, that is cool. I have never seen that before. That's pretty good. But then a lot of the planet and the aliens and the creatures we saw there, I got to be honest, it was like, oh, I kind of have seen this before. This is very much, meet the new galaxy, same as the old galaxy. So what are your thoughts of the giant statues, of the whale bones circling the planet, of the aliens? What are your thoughts of Peridia?
Well, I didn't know quite what to make of the statues because there have been kind of similar things across a whole bunch of different franchises that are that kind of way. So I guess that's just a symbolism of civilization is here. But, in terms of, did I expect the planet to have some kind of weird atmosphere or anything like that? No, I mean, the laws of physics pretty much apply everywhere in the universe. So I figure if life can be there, then there must be, maybe a silicon-based life or something like that in some more exotic planets. But I figure you pretty much got to have water. You pretty much got to have some kind of vegetation. You pretty much got to have all of these other things for a civilization to be able to exist. But I did love the people that were still there when we met them, which I'm sure you'll get to in a second.
Well, do you mean, back in our galaxy, Dathomir has Night Sisters, but back in the previous galaxy, there are Great Mothers. What did you think about them? They're standing in a very similar Stonehenge-like space as we were back on the previous planet. So, Matt, what did you think of the Great Mothers? Do they work with what you know about the Night Sisters from the animated series?
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see them being predecessors, so to speak, or what have you. Not, obviously they're just as many generations down as the next Night Sisters, or maybe not. Obviously, maybe they live thousands and thousands of years. Who knows? But the whole idea, I thought that it was a good way to bring to life what the Night Sisters look like, and I've got a lot to talk about in regards to their cargo later. But yeah, so. Their look was fantastic. I love the little device that they used to ensnare Sabine as well.
I mean, you've heard of things about why do we have to use deodorant? Why do you have to take a bath every day? Because you don't want to reek of Jedi. I mean, that is some stone cold. That is definitely what your mother says. Oh, you reek of Jedi. It is dangerous. Sabine, this is very early in the episode, and I'm already sick of this. We had a deal. If she and the character of Balin go like 10 more seasons, or, go to a movie, go 10 more seasons, I still want her to be saying, remember the deal, lightsaber battle.
That's great. Unfortunately, we probably won't get Balin's skull after this season. But
now, yeah. Well, that actor for sure. Now, Balin and Shin, it is very smart. And, I'm tough on the episode, snarky on the episode a lot of ways. I've always been relatively positive of Balin and Shin. What I think is not just positive, but just very intelligent, is to have the villains with different agendas. And we are really seeing that Balin and Shin are completely, guns for hire, mercenaries. They look at this place. Balin is explaining, hey, this is a land of dreams and madness. He's sick of, there's always a republic or a Jedi, and then they fall to fighting forces. And I called it, he wants to break the wheel. It's just fascinating to see somebody who has a different motivation than our heroes. What do you think?
What do I think of Balin and Shin and their agendas is the fact that I'm almost still as lost as I was before, but I'm much more intrigued. Because as we go through this episode, we're going to see just little drops of clues of the fact that it's not to restore the Jedi Order. No, it's not to do this. No, it's not to do that. What is this greater power? So I want to find all of that out. But I do love how they graduated that along, be it a little between 2 or 3 scenes. It certainly makes it fun to think that and especially when you look at the end of the result of this episode, how maybe different alliances may be coming to be forged by the end of all of this.
Wonderful way of saying that. Yeah, let's maybe talk about that at the very end, because I think that is very smart to say. Sabine, who has been lassoed, for lack of a better word, by the great mothers, she is in a jail now. She's in a different jail on a distant galaxy. And part of me was thinking, if this was your fate to spend the rest of your life in a prison in a distant galaxy, Sabine, maybe this is poetic justice because you really did make a deal you shouldn't have made. I thought it was crazy. In a different galaxy, can Sabine use the Force? She keeps trying. She keeps trying to call upon the Force. She maybe thinks she is, but no, it turns out the whole cell, the whole building is shaking because Thrawn's Star Destroyer is pulling up. He is here. We're about to meeting. The whole room is shaking to see Grand Admiral Thrawn. I'll be first. How do you say Enoch? Is that how you say it? Enoch?
Yeah.
How do you? Enoch?
I call him Enoch. Yeah.
Enoch. Man, this gold-faced stormtrooper is creepy AF is all I want to say.
Yeah.
I look at it and I'm like, this is creepy. We are not in your mother's galaxy anymore. I already said Thrawn gets a wrestler's introduction. These stormtroopers look defeated. They look like they've been trapped on the wrong side of the galaxy for 9 years, which they certainly have. I haven't seen the animated shows. I guess I've seen bits and pieces of them. I did read those Timothy Zahn books. I, like everybody, have Thrawn on a very high pedestal. Say what you will about him as he's presented in this show. This actor, who I believe did the voice of Grand Admiral Thrawn on the animated shows,
right?
He's got a great voice. That is exactly how you want somebody like this to sound. I did love that. Now, part of me wishes somehow, I know this is how Thrawn's always described as, a blue alien, red eyes, dark hair. Somehow I wish he could have even seemed a bit more alien, but I think he's great. I think, 5 seconds into the show and I'm like, okay, this is going to work.
I think there was a lot of similar response to actually Ahsoka's first live action appearance. How it didn't feel quite right or whatever. But I do think that they've taken time to tailor that a little bit, and plus us just getting used to it, I think helps us accept Rosario as Ahsoka. This was the big thing that took off points for me. I would have loved the episode a lot more, but I was very underwhelmed by the extent, and this goes beyond this moment, which is, glorious. But I mean, how glorious is it to walk through a bunch of duct tape stormtroopers? They can't even hold their armor together anymore. Or is that great mother's kind of garment strips or whatever to hold it together? Anyway, it just felt a little bit like, I wanted everything that he said to come out of his mouth when he first walked up to be just stellar, knock me over, knock me out of my seat.
Yes.
And I didn't get that. It just didn't happen for me. It was appropriate. It was fine, but it just, I dug my own hole by creating higher expectations for it than I should have, I think.
No, I say everybody in the Star Wars community, even those who probably haven't seen the animated shows or read the books, everybody knows Thrawn. He's like part of the DNA. And I want to know how everybody felt about it. If you're listening to this podcast, we said it multiple times at PHQ on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Facebook.com/PHQ, email hello@doublepmedia.com. If you're on YouTube, go down in the comments. How do you feel about General Elon Musk? Thrawn. Let us know what you think. Now, some of his lines, once again, this is the type of character he is. He is a character who's going to say, hey, I'm going to reshape the galaxy, and how that singular focus will reshape the galaxy. These are big words. And he's someone who doesn't sweat the small stuff. He hears Sabine complaining about this deal, and he apparently knows her from the animated show. He's like, okay, let's hold up our end of the deal. Here's your ride. Here's this wolf horse you get, and we're even going to give you weapons. Now Enoch is like, die well. That's a nice little parting shot. But Thrawn, once again, he doesn't sweat the small stuff. You want to go find this Ezra? Fine. Here, go find him later. I was happy. Now Shin, and maybe Balin already knew this, but Shin is something like, oh yeah, we made a deal, But so she's going to get to see Ezra, but as soon as she sees Ezra, we're going to kill her. Youch.
Well, Darth Vader did kill Anakin Skywalker from a certain point of view, and I feel like Balin has a certain, we did fulfill Sabine's our request or my promise from a certain point of view.
This is reminding me of Vader's deal with Lando on the Cloud City. He's like, I kept the agreement. Yes, I changed it a bit. Pray I do not alter it further. So
yeah,
good.
That's true. And the one thing that he has not fulfilled his side of the deal is, will she be harmed? Because the complete intent is to do that. And there is one thing that Thrawn says strategically later that I got to put a pin in this point and come to back later because I love it.
Now these, I joke, meet the new galaxy, same as the old galaxy, but these are Star Wars points. Hey, you go out on your own in an alien world, you're going to be attacked by the forces there. And here, these nomads, these pirates, whatever they are, they attack Sabine. She uses a lot of her Mandalorian weapons, and her Mandalorian Beskar armor does protect her a whole lot. But in the end, to win, she has to use a lightsaber. She has to kick their butt. What did you think of this action of Sabine meeting the natives and being a little cruel?
Yeah,
hero.
It's not. There's never been any question about Sabine's ability to wield the lightsaber against non-Force users. She's had plenty of experience with the dark saber in the Rebel series. That's actually how Bo-Katan ended up with the dark saber initially, and then I guess lost it to what's his name, Moff Gideon. So she can wield a sword. So that was good action. I just can't imagine how stupid these nomads must be, because every time they hit her armor, all she says is, ow. Why doesn't somebody go for a headshot? I mean, just get it over with. Go for a headshot.
What's ahead? We're aliens in another galaxy. We don't know.
Well, it's the one place where that stuff that the lasers keep bouncing off of doesn't seem to be there, because she left her helmet behind like a knucklehead.
Well, also her Lothcat. Where's her Lothcat? Who's watching the Lothcat she left behind?
Exactly. She's just wrecked the whole universe. Not only is she given Thrawn the galaxy again, but she's an animal deserter.
Exactly. Go get her, Bob Barker. So that, these heroes are good. They're winning their battles. The villains, why not just place a tracker on Sabine? Why not put a tracker on her? Like, here's your weapons. Here's your beast. Why not put a tracker on the beast so you could follow her in a spaceship? No, they're like, hey, guess what, Balin and Shin? You have to chase after her in the same wolf beast that she's riding on. Now, this wolf beast, what is your thought on it? The character design, everything. I have to be honest, it took me a bit of time, but I ended up growing to love the design of the wolf horse. What do they call it? A howler at times?
A howler, yeah.
I also almost grew to appreciate its personality. When real danger is around, wolf horse howler runs like hell and makes Sabine fight all those nomads at once. When there's like turtle danger around and the wolf hound knows that she can win, she's going to stay and bark and growl. I loved it. What did you think of Howler?
Howlers are smart. Howlers are very smart. Run away from the real threat, and bully the one that's not a threat.
Love it.
This whole bit between this Howler and Sabine was great. It was don't follow me, dog. Don't follow me, dog. and then, okay, dog, you can follow me again. And
no.
So I thought it was beautiful, and it was a perfect way to set up that design for a nice plush toy that kids who want it can get it later on, close to Christmas. Probably next, I'm guessing in 2 weeks, you will see those things in the Disney store.
Is she going to be an evil person who runs a zoo by taking this wolf horse off this planet and bringing it back to our galaxy where its natural habitat is not there?
Yeah, when I first saw it, I kept calling it the rat crocodile horse. That's what it looked like to me. It's weird, and Sabine will, maybe her Lothcat needs a friend. Maybe her Lothcat needs a friend.
That let's hope they get along. And that this wolf beast, this howler, doesn't eat the Loth cat. That would be terrible.
Yep.
Now, Sabine is in a new world, so she's got to gather up her Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion. Whoops, sorry. No, she's got to gather up her crew. She's got the howler. So who does she have to meet next? The little turtles, the little Noti. Is that the Anglo language?
I think that's what they were called.
Sure?
The language was for sure the Noti. And all Ezra did was refer to them as his friends, but I think that there were a couple of subtitles that said Noti speaks and not just, that kind of thing, or Noti motion or something like that. Anyway.
What do you think of these? I keep calling them turtles. Did you have a different take? Did you have another alligator rat that you described earlier? What did you think crocodile. Of these? What did you think of Gypsy
turtles
turtle?
Is good for them. I agree with you. Those are just friendly turtles. Ezra has befriended, who are pretty good at camping, evidently, and moving around. They're as nomadic as the nomad. So I liked them. I really enjoyed that scene with her realizing that the one little Noti had Ezra's rebel patch.
Yes. Oh,
that was really
good.
cool.
That was good.
Yeah. To hear the little creature actually say the word Ezra Bridger was cool as well. When she says, "Do you know Ezra Bridger? He's my friend." And then the little guy goes, "Ezra Bridger," and, points, and off they go.
Pretty good. Real quickly, let's go ahead and wrap up Baylan and Shin's storyline in the episode.
Okay.
Baylan and Shin are talking. Maybe they know these things because they've been master and apprentice for so long, and they're just saying them out loud so we can learn it. What Baylan refers to as Boken Jedi, who trained in the wild after the Jedi fell. Interesting. So if, the Empire certainly couldn't wipe out anybody who could touch the Force, since the Force is all around us and binds us together and stuff. And so there are these things called Boken Jedi who are trained in the wild. Baylan almost claims that Shin is not a Boken Jedi, but he trained her himself. He found this Force-sensitive person and he trained her in his way. His almost like, dare I say it, almost like a Qui-Gon Jinn figure who's like, okay, the Jedi Order is this, and I like the idea of the Order, but I want to train somebody in my vision of what the Force should be. Any thoughts on Baylan and Shin in this final scene, and as Baylan pretty much talks about, hey, yeah, I'm just with, I know we're working right now for these guys, but I feel a greater power calling to me.
Yeah, that's the thing that really got me. Is I'm like, okay, if something is powerful enough, he's using the logic that if something is powerful enough to make these great mothers want to leave and go to another galaxy, then that's what I want, which is really scary. On top of that, the whole thing about the Jedi bit. So do we consider Luke to be that as well?
Ooh, that is a wonderful question. Luke was trained in the wild, true, but he was trained in the ways of the Jedi. So I'm going to believe he really is a Jedi and not whatever Baylan considers.
I know you
Shin.
haven't watched Ezra Rebels, but Ezra was actually trained as a Jedi by a Jedi, Kanan Jarrus.
Okay.
So,
I would still consider him a Jedi then, as opposed to whatever these kind of other subcategories are.
Right.
I wonder. Listeners, great. Matt asks a great question. What do you think? Is Ezra a Boken Jedi? Is Luke Skywalker a Boken Jedi? Is Grogu going to, in the end, up be a Boken Jedi? At PHQ, let us know. So we say goodbye to Baylan and Shin. We're obviously going to find out more with their story. In the only 2 episodes left, we got to find out more of what Baylan is talking about. But we reach the Noti village. And to me, I said, this is, it is a galaxy far, far away, but everywhere you go, there's a Ewok village in the galaxy. This is the equivalent of the Ewok village. Ezra is not Colonel Kurtz, who's been out in the wilderness and gone mad. To me, Ezra, from what I know of the cartoon and what I saw earlier in the hologram that Sabine looked at, to me, he's become almost Obi-Wan, a wizened hippie.
Yeah.
But once again, as somebody who hasn't watched the animated show, the fact that there wasn't a huge hug, that there wasn't swelling music, that there wasn't like, okay, I Sabine, have done a million things that have been wrong, but I did it all for this purpose, to find my friend. How did you, as somebody who watched the animated show, feel about Sabine and Ezra's reunion?
I loved it. I felt it was very realistic to their relationship in Rebels. And I thought that it reflected it very well. I was very moved by their hug, their brother-sistery kind of hug when that did finally happen. I loved. I think that this actor that's playing Ezra has really embodied that character in just the tone of voice and everything. Like, the plan worked. Wait, the plan worked, right? Those kind of things. And then, of course, Natasha doing Sabine very well by saying, holding off just a minute, just to torture him for just a minute more, and then say, yeah, the plan worked, and then the big hug. I loved all of that. That was fantastic.
All right. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad that worked for you. For me, I didn't feel any of that, and I was expecting more. But one moment I did love is Ezra, once again, if I understand this correct, he's been trapped in another galaxy, living amongst these friendly turtles for 9 years. And Ezra says, I can't wait to go home. And Sabine, they needed literally a record scratch to hit right then. Yeah, about that. She didn't get to say anything. How is Sabine going to mention to Ezra, I came to find you, but I kind of came with Thrawn's buddies. How do you think he'll react when he finds out that, I assume, next week?
Yeah, a lot of this episode has been about Sabine having to face the ramifications of her decision. I love that they teased it just a little more. Will it make Ezra cross his arms and say, no, I'm not going with you. You lie. You helped the bad guy. You helped the guy that I sacrificed to create. He's not going to do anything like that. So
well, he could, Matt. What's funny is that almost would be an honest reaction. No. I sacrificed myself to get Thrawn out of the galaxy. I've spent 9 to 10 years in the desert to save everybody. And you're literally throwing that 9 years of my life away to give him a way back to the galaxy. I agree. I don't think Ezra would react like this. But on the flip side, I almost could see him reacting like this.
Okay.
If I sacrifice myself for 9 years on a purpose and somebody kind of thwarts that purpose after 9 years, I mean, it's tough. I want to go home so bad, but
Yeah, he sacrificed himself quite a bit. But he's also made a decent life for himself. Him and his Noti friends are getting along just fine. They've made it just fine. He could use a hairstyle and a beard trimmer. But
he looks good to the Noties. Well, when in Noti, live like the Noties.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is, because they got those things hanging off of their cheeks too. So not coming out that wild like his beard, but they probably just think, oh yeah, that's his little things. Well, I like that actor saying the Noti language. He did that very well. I don't know what it was.
I'm with you. I agree with that. But okay, let's get to the episode cliffhanger. This show is titled Ahsoka. We saw her at the very beginning briefly. The Great Mothers have been listening to the thread of fate. They know Ahsoka's coming. Thrawn now knows Ahsoka's coming. Morgan can't believe it. Baylan told me he killed her. Baylan is flawed. Dun, dun, dun. We've got 2 episodes. We have a clear objective. What's going to happen? It feels like you called it earlier. Thrawn does have to return to the galaxy we're really following to make this story go anyway.
Yeah.
Ezra, Sabine, I assume, and Ahsoka and Huyang, they're going to be trying to stop it. What do you see coming in these final 2 episodes, Matt?
Well, I feel really bad for the poor Star Whale, for the poor Purrgil that Morgan is going to blow up, even though it won't matter. I mean, that's the order that he gave, was destroy it on sight without prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
So that Purrgil's gone. It's gone. But that doesn't mean that it'll destroy the ship within it. So, I mean, it's not like it's that much of a threat to Ahsoka to me. The other thing that I thought was really interesting was that he would only spare 2 sets of troops to go and try and get rid of Sabine and Ezra and Baylan and Shin. You know why? Because he's just going to send them out, and he doesn't care whether any of them make it back or not. He gone. So he's just going to, that's why he wouldn't spare any more numbers, is because he's going to leave them behind. He's going to sacrifice those men so that he can get away and ensure that Sabine and Ezra and gang do not get away also. So love that. That was very tactical, very scary. Love that line of thinking. Other than that, dun dun dun, Ahsoka arrives, and then we've got more Purrgil bones.
No, please, no.
That's what's going to happen.
You can kill Ezra, but don't hurt my Purrgil. We're going to build a list of things we don't want anything bad to happen to. And the Purrgil, the Howler, heck, even most of these turtles. I can lose one turtle, but otherwise they must live. Everybody else, you're on your own. Hey, that's this episode, Far, Far Away. What did you think? We're going to read some of your feedback in a bit, but not until after we find out if characters are Jedi or not a Jedi.
No.
This is a game inspired by Ahsoka, who studied at the Jedi Temple under a Jedi Anakin, but who decided to leave the Jedi Order because she wanted to forge her own way. Is it a Jedi? Not a Jedi. Well, this first one we're going to ask about, we know how Shin feels. She feels these are not Jedi, they are witches. But let's talk about it, Matt. These are the Great Mothers, the ancestors, or I guess the predecessors of the Night Sisters of Dathomir. Are the Great Mothers Jedi or not a Jedi?
Here's another thing that maybe we should have discussed during the episode discussion.
Okay.
But the Great Mothers are bringing it's going to take 3 days to load their stuff up from the catacombs.
Oh my
Could they
goodness.
possibly, for you people who have watched the animated series, could they possibly be bringing bodies from the catacombs to reanimate, much the way that Marok was? Because we've seen that happen in a Clone Wars episode. So I'm just saying,
we saw Marok.
Yeah, will we see more resurrections? What is in the catacombs? It takes 3 days to load up. An army of bodies is what I say. And therefore, because they like hiding the dead, Great Mothers are definitely Jedi.
Whoa. Well, I agree. The Great Mothers are Jedi, but for different reasons. What did we see Grogu do? Grogu helped heal people by giving some of the Force to Grief Karga when he was poisoned in season 1 of The Mandalorian. What did we see Rey do? Rey Skywalker. She had dead Ben Solo, and he gave her his life. She was dead. The Jedi have been able to bring people back from the dead. Heck, even good old Darth Sidious, Palpatine, he's come back from the dead multiple times. So therefore, the Great Mothers bringing bodies back from the dead, they're Jedi, baby. Totally Jedi. They reek of Jedi, is what I say.
Folks, if you have a different argument for why the Great Mothers might not be Jedi, please be sure to let us know at the word double letters PHQ on all the socials and Double P Media on YouTube.
All righty. I will go next with I'll go first in our next debate.
Uh-oh.
Grand Admiral Thrawn. We're finally seeing him. He's been the big bad talked about for 5 episodes. Here he's revealed in episode 6. Grand Admiral Thrawn. Blue in the face. That reminds me of Jedi. What did Obi-Wan do? He talked to Anakin until he was blue in the face. So therefore, Grand Admiral Thrawn is officially a Jedi. You can't fight that logic, Matt. You can't fight it.
You know what? I don't really think I can, but I might come up with a different reason, and that's because Grand Admiral Thrawn is. What did he say to Morgan? I want to know Ahsoka's history. I want to know everything about her. I want to do this. I want to do that. Jedi are nosy, and so is Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Okay, boy, we've had 2 Jedi so far. Will everybody on this week officially make the Jedi pass? All right, these, you called them rat crocodiles. I called them wolf horses. The Howlers, and specifically our Howler, this beast who ran away and then came back to fight another day. Howler, Jedi or not a Jedi? You go first. What do you think?
Well, this one is quite easy. Howlers are Jedi because if all the Howlers act the way this particular Howler did, then you can parallel it straight to Yoda. I'm serious. When things get going tough, go and hide.
Oh,
And when you can take credit for something, come back out. That is Yoda. That is a Howler. Howler's Jedi.
Matt, you were so close, but you didn't finish it. The Howler came back to fight another day. Guess what Yoda didn't do? He didn't come back to fight another day. He stayed away. Therefore, Howler is not a Jedi. I'm sorry, Howler. You will be kicked out. Get out of my Jedi Academy, Howler. Go back to the swamp, you rat crocodile, you. Okay, it's my turn to go first in our last contestant this week, and that is these crazy turtle creatures, the Noti. They speak their own language. They live by themselves. They love the Rebel insignia logo. You see where I'm going. The Noti are not Jedi. They are Ewoks. They are not Jedi because let's be honest, they aren't one with the Force. The Force, we know, is great for picking up rocks. The Noti are not rocks. Therefore, you may think they're rocks. They're not rocks. Therefore, not a Jedi. I'm sorry, Noti. The answer is right in your name, N-O-T, not a Jedi.
Bubba, I think you have that wrong because
What?
the Jedi move rocks. So do the Noti. I mean, they're attached to their backs, but they do move rocks. And so therefore, Noti, yes, Jedi.
Man, how did I miss that, Matt? How did I miss that? For once in our game, you're actually correct. So I bow my head. They are moving rocks for sure. What do you guys think? Did you like the Great Mothers? Did you like Grand Admiral Thrawn? Did you like the Howlers and the Noti at WPHQ? Now, there's one thing I know you like, and that is the musical analysis from our Double M, Matt Murdock. This week, Matt, what are you going to speak on for us?
Are you kidding me? The fandom would kill me if I didn't talk about Thrawn's theme. I mean, I'd be a dead man. Yeah. And I'm also going to talk about Ezra's theme. But the music that I like the most is something that is the most un-Star Warsy music that was in the episode. All of that next. I know that Hobrix, who did an excellent version of part of Thrawn's theme on his own YouTube channel, has been waiting for this episode so that we might hear Thrawn's theme. And we did get some aspects of it, but there were more allusions to things than there was the actual presentation of what we might consider the main motive of Thrawn's theme. There was something at the end that was very much a statement of things that we hear before, and there was a great sense of timbres, the instruments that are played, that helped represent Thrawn throughout the course of the episode. Primarily the organ, which is something that you don't hear in Star Wars very often, but it is well used for Thrawn's theme that Kevin Kiner has done before and is really well executed when we're first introduced to him. The music itself, however, only kind of outlines the chords of his theme and not really the melodies that we associate with it so much. A big motive that a lot of people associate with Thrawn in the show Rebels, and one that Hobrix based his performance on, is this. We don't really get that this time around, but something that we do get right at the very end of the episode is a statement that also is part of Thrawn's theme. It's actually when it starts to get more melodic. It's just the beginning of it. It sounds like this. Now, that's the way it's performed in this episode. By holding each of the notes out, you get a much more dramatic presentation of that part of the melody. But I'm going to ask Bubba to put a link in the show notes for a video to YouTube by the Last Sith channel. And you can hear that motive being performed slightly differently at the 301 mark of that video, at the 1029 mark of that video, and at the 1102 mark of that video. The more usual rhythm that you'll hear in that video is this. And that's very much Thrawn, and I like the way, again, that Kiner drew him out. And he alluded to Thrawn during the entire episode anytime he was on screen, but didn't really present the theme as we know it. And I think part of that is because we're just getting to know him. Now, I know that that seems counterproductive to what we're used to in terms of scoring things, but I also suspect that we haven't really seen the cold and fearless and fearsome Thrawn yet. And so what I'm thinking is that as he gets more dastardly, we'll probably get that theme that we all know and love a little more. There's something else that I kind of wanted to talk about here, and that is the use of staccato. You've probably already heard me talk about, the Christmas cash-in that Disney is doing, both with the Howler and with the Naughty. And one of the things that always helps sell this, for like the Ewoks, the Jawas, everything, is the use of staccato, separating notes. The separation tends to generate excitement. And then what you do on top of that harmonically typically illustrates whether it's something to be feared or something to be beloved. And in both cases in this episode, with the Howler and with the Naughty, staccato was used to generate that excitement or maybe even playfulness. But at the same time, as in with the Howler, a long noted melody was used that kind of smooths it out and makes it more playful. This, of course, is when Sabine keeps sending the Howler away and he keeps coming back. A scene which I absolutely loved. But the staccato actually sets up that playfulness like this. And then by placing that more smooth and pretty melody over the top of it, rather than the staccato taking on any kind of feeling of being scary, it feels playful. One other thing about the Noti, which I really enjoyed, was when we first saw their camp. And right up until the time that Ezra and Sabine are talking to each other, and right up really to the time where she hugs him, we get a very un-Star Wars-y kind of music that I really think is some of the best music that was in this episode. The use of the solo trumpet, the way that the harmonies are stacked and spread out between, really reminded me of a very Aaron Copland type of score right there. Namely, what we call his populist style. The solo trumpet, the strings, the low brass is very reminiscent of Fanfare for the Common Man, or Billy the Kid, or Appalachian Spring, and I love that that little tribute was thrown in there. And as I said, that pretty much continues right up until Sabine and Ezra hug. And that's where you get a really nice presentation of Ezra's theme. Just to remind you, that melody sounds like this. And Hobrix, I hope we get a little bit more Thrawn, because I was a little underwhelmed. I mean, I loved what Kiner did here, but hopefully he'll do more as the episodes continue. Let's get back to Bubba.
Matt, how dare you? How dare you say those things?
I love Copland. What can I say? Copland's a good composer.
We've talked our own selves way too much about our thoughts on this episode. Just as important, more important than us is your feedback at PHQ if you want to tell us what you thought. Our first feedback is from our buddy on Twitter, Link Hogthrob, who's at Matt's Test Lab 1, who wrote, Episode 6 of Ahsoka is great stuff. It's not quite Andor in adult storylines, but enough in that direction to keep me interested. More, please. Is Thrawn a frost giant? Oh, there you go. There you go. Here we go. Marvel crossover. Link continues. Who's going to tell Ezra about going home? Yeah, that was Link. You and I 100% agree on that. Enoch reminds me of the old gladiator in Gladiator wearing that mask. Great call, Matt. So good. And they end up with a question for us. Does Balin know he's expendable? What do you think, Matt? Do you think Balin knows that he's expendable to people like Thrawn?
I think that he suspects, and I think that whatever he's seeking, he feels like will make that irrelevant.
Oh, you know what? That is, Matt, you say so much smart stuff. I am just going to say 100% agree with your thoughts. Now, a true loyal listener, Camille, gave us some feedback on episode 6. What'd she say, Matt?
Well, Harley Camille on X or on the social medias, Camille, our friend, says, another 10 out of 10 double T's for this episode.
Wait, double T's?
Talking turtles. Ezra
I should have
is
stolen
back.
her double instead of stealing
Hey, why
yours.
didn't you just take those? Ezra is back. Thrawn has his own cult. I may be out of his cult if it starts talking about fake news. Thank you, Camille, for that wonderful feedback.
Now, because we record these episodes literally within 24 hours of the episode coming out, we have a lot of feedback on episode 5. Somebody who's known as Comfy in Crocs. Boy, is that some honesty right there. They just said about episode 5, loved it. Ooh, so good. What did Mike say?
Yeah, that's probably Jacob Collier's burner account
cool.
right there. Mike Duplessis, 8069, says, did you see the same episode as me? This episode 5 was the most nonsensical episode of a TV series I've ever seen.
Wow. Yeah, we are having that extreme thoughts in people, Star Wars fans who watch Ahsoka. I suspect if Mike says that episode 5 was nonsensical, it's because, like a lot of people, and honestly like me, if you haven't watched these animated shows, I do think you're watching it with like almost one arm tied behind your back, which is an odd phrase that maybe doesn't make too much sense.
I actually like, Bubba, the fact that Filoni's embraced that. He's saying, hey, that's part of the Star Wars universe. You can choose not to watch it, but I'm not going to sacrifice my show for the fact that you haven't watched it. Is it smart? I don't know, but I admire the courage of it.
Once again, I think it's great. And if I had watched the animated show and somebody made a live action continuation of the animated show, I would be through the moon about the idea. So I don't actually mind that it's not really 100% targeted towards me. I just wish it was. I'm like any greedy person. I wish it was. Now, somebody who feels the other way about episode 5, or at least parts of episode 5, is somebody who calls himself Real Cash Talk, who says the girl who played young Ahsoka was the best part of episode 5. I love it when it gets philosophical, and I suppose they mean Star Wars. And that actress who played young Ahsoka, who was she, man?
It was Ariana Greenblatt. Again, she's made a career of playing younger versions of epic characters. She played young Gamora in Infinity War for the Marvel series. So welcome back. Welcome back to Disney, Ariana. Here's another younger version of a character to play yet again.
Okay, keep doing it. She's good. Our good buddy Seth on Facebook said, okay, I decided that I'm catching up on the Parsec Passion podcast for Ahsoka. It's nice to hear Matt back. There you go.
Yeah, but read that next line.
Okay, well, Seth, like everybody, though, he misses Catfish's snarky attitude and his hatred of children. So Seth says, I'm looking forward to the end of the strike. That's true.
Yeah.
Seth continues.
Please get Catfish back immediately is what Seth is saying.
No. He says, I need some positivity about the show Ahsoka. I think so. Seth, I know so many people are through the moon about it, and I don't want to turn those people off. I'm just trying to give you the I guess my own honest reaction. I'm not trying to fake it. I gave last week a 9 out of 10 because I really did feel that way, even with the faults.
Bubba, are you implying that I do fake it? Is that what you're doing?
No, I don't think you fake it at all, Matt. I think you have an odd rating system where literally instead of 1 to 10, you have to consider your ratings from like 7 to 10. Where does it fall?
7 is a 0. 7 is a 0. Yeah.
Now, he considers that the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka, he says he only gave them 7 double H's out of 10.
Double H's?
Helmet hairs. Now, ouch. Now, Seth did watch Clone Wars and Rebels. He watched Clone Wars more closely. He says he watched Rebels as background noise. He didn't like season 2 of Rebels. He says, I like the blind Jedi, Kanan Jarrus, I believe his name, and he thought Chopper was great. Do you, because I haven't seen him, I can't say this. Matt, did you think, oh, this season of Rebels was great while this season of Rebels was weak? Is it that type of show where you can tell that stuff?
I personally thought that season 1 was weaker than season 2, but I think that seasons 3 and whatever they concluded up with were far superior. And it was pretty much because Thrawn started entering the storyline that made it more interesting for me. So,
all right. On YouTube, we got this feedback from a user with the handle Word who was kind of tough on me about how, boy, we spent a lot of time watching the Burgle in the clouds. We spent a lot of time flying back and forth above the coast looking for Ahsoka. And so Word questioned and said the speed of the narration of the story for him is good enough and enough good. It's not too lacking in intensity and drama, and yet he doesn't think it's too excessive. So he really likes this pace and this kind of pattern that Ahsoka's going for. And Word says, I think it's a welcome return to the space opera drama. Ooh, well, thank you, Word.
Thanks, Word. Miggy 110 also says something here. Says about particularly about our comments about the pacing, I guess. I don't mind the pacing. I am really enjoying getting to know Ahsoka even during her quiet moments. The shots of the planet they were on, the red foliage, etc., is a moment to soak in the beauty and the mystery that the planet holds. It's magical, much like the Force and the world between worlds. I am very much okay with all of this. Ahsoka will now be more at peace with herself and perhaps feel lighter now that she has some closure, and that has happened between her and Anakin. I think the question we should be asking is, will Ezra still be Ezra? Everyone is excited to see Ezra, but will he be excited to see everyone else? Dun, dun, dun. That sounds like somebody who knows me.
Well, how would you answer that for Miggy based on what we've seen in episode 6?
I would ask Miggy to chime in on this video and tell us what they thought, because I felt that it was a pretty genuine performance and a pretty consistent look at the character from the character that we saw at the end of the series, the Rebel series. So that's how I stand on it. I really liked it. What did you think, Miggy 110? Let us know.
Yeah, please let us know. As someone who hasn't watched it, but kind of soaked it in through maybe a clip or two or osmosis, to me, this feels, or is supposed to feel like this is Ezra, who you know is Ezra. Even 9 years in the wild, 10 years in the wild, hasn't taken away the true nature of who he is. We got this final bit of feedback from Lauren, who is a great respondent to our coverage of Only Murders in the Building. So I love Lauren is commenting on another show.
Hey.
Lauren gave episode 5 of Ahsoka, she said, 8 out of 10. I've seen a good chunk of the Clone Wars and the Rebels episodes, so I too got very surprised and excited when I saw young Ahsoka suddenly appear. I even understood the Anakin haircut and clothing, along with the infamous folded arm stance. I think the only one that was more excited than me was my massively big Star Wars fan of a brother who did see every single episodes of the animated spin-off show. Oh, well, Lauren, I'm glad your brother was so excited. Lauren continues, I agree with you about how slow the episode was in the beginning, but I got over it. Now seeing Ahsoka in her almost white wizard way that you were talking about there, Matt, like the new getup gives me the feelings as there's going to be nothing to stop her now. And from here on out, she will prove herself to be a massively powerful Jedi, even more than ever before.
Yay.
Lauren wraps up with, my only reason for giving it an 8 and not more is that this episode left a ton of questions for me. Was that actually Anakin's ghost that Ahsoka was speaking to? Or was that something like the father, the daughter, and the son of the Jedi lore? We know that Ahsoka embodies the daughter. Perhaps it was her speaking to Ahsoka from within Ahsoka. I like the idea of the son speaking to her disturbingly. I wouldn't mind the father, because apparently the father in this kind of triangle of the Force is neutral. I'm inclined to think that it might have been the daughter, because she was always there for Ahsoka, especially when Ahsoka is in deadly danger. But wishfully thinking makes me hope that it was indeed a beautiful reunion with her beloved master Anakin, and that they did indeed resolve their differences together. Yet at the end, so many questions. Wonderful feedback. Any thoughts on Lauren's incredibly great feedback, Matt?
We did briefly last week talk about some of the many theories that were going around about what Anakin actually was, and I believe that Lauren here did actually hit on a couple of them. So as far as I'm concerned, it's up to each of us to decide what that was, because I'm not sure we're ever going to get an answer from Filoni. And I think that that's kind of beautiful. To me, that's the whole Lost thing. You decide what it was. Don't let me decide what it was for you. And then don't tell me that I didn't give you answers. because I'm too lazy to do so. So, but I loved the whole idea of the fact that it could have been any of these things. And I really like your ideas here, especially about the daughter, because if you could classify it both as a near-death experience and as that, because in the Clone Wars episode, essentially the daughter is that owl that kind of follows. I think we saw it in the first time we ever saw Ahsoka in the Mandalorian show. We saw that owl that was up in the tree. That's the that's Morai, the representation of the daughter. So it could very well have been the daughter saying, "Hey, you got to get up. You got to survive." I like it. Man,
she needs that. She needs that owl in the Purgle's mouth with her. That's what I'm saying.
The way Thrawn's planning things, let's blow this star whale up. Yeah, she needs some help.
Hey, we've got only 2 episodes left. That is crazy. I think I said it after episode 5. This is not going to be resolved in any way other than maybe a cliffhanger of Thrawn has found his way back to our galaxy. What do you guys want to see in the final 2 episodes? Once you see these episodes, don't hesitate to reach out. Give us that feedback. My name's Bubba. You can find me on Twitter at FitandTrim. That's FITTENTRIM at FitandTrim on Twitter.
And I'm Walleye the White. No, actually, I'm not. I'm Matt. You can find me at Musical Concepts on whatever Elon Musk's site is called today.
That's for sure. And you'll hear us next time on
Parsec Passion.
You do that so well, I'm going to demand you stay hurt and injured for the rest of the season.
Oh, my God. It shouldn't be too hard as I laughed at.
Yeah, well, there are only 2 more weeks. Only 2 more weeks. You just got to, it's no pain, no gain.